Do you ever feel like you're drowning? Like your mind won't shut up, spiraling over things you can't fix, can't control, can't even escape? The deadlines, the expectations, the what ifs. It's like this constant noise in your head, and no matter how much you try to calm down, it just gets louder. It's 8 a.m., you wake up, and the first thing that hits you is that feeling in your chest, anxiety creeping in like it always does. The emails, the to do list, the pressure to be perfect, to be enough. You're paralyzed. You try to shake it off, but it is there, tugging at you. You check your phone, scroll through social media, and there it is again. Comparison, self doubt, that nagging thought that maybe you're just not doing it right. By evening, the stress is already overwhelming, and all you want is some peace. So you go on YouTube, and there it is. The video that will change your life. Its title is something along the lines of How to Stop Caring So Much or The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Its central idea: focus on what you can control. The idea is so freeing. Why haven't you thought of it before? The video talks about Stoicism, how you can emotionally detach from stressing things in life, and how to live with balance and virtue. Nothing in this world really belongs to you, and upon realizing this, it seems like you are finally floating to the surface. You wake up the next day starting to embrace Stoicism in your everyday life, and honestly, it works. It works even better than expected. Day by day, you don't argue with people you know you won't change. You don't stress over these minuscule issues that can easily be fixed. You even start to look at people who are anxious, just like you used to be all the time, and you're almost amused by them. At first, this detachment gives you a sense of control. The sting of disappointment fades, and the chaos of the world seems a little less overwhelming. You feel like you're becoming the calm in the storm, a master of your own fate. Your life can be challenging at times, but you have learned to not depend on the outcome. You stop obsessing over whether you'll get the job after an interview. I did my part, you tell yourself. The outcome does not matter. You stop refreshing your inbox, waiting for that reply, because attachment breeds suffering. When you fail, you don't flinch. When you succeed, you don't celebrate. Both are illusions, you say, just ripples on the surface of a calm, indifferent sea. You've done it. You have won. You've built the fortress so high, nothing gets in. Except, except sometimes, late at night, when the world outside your window has gone quiet, and the only sound is the faint hum of your own breathing. You feel something strange. Here's the thing no one told you. Dreams don't die with a bang. They die with silence. They fade when you stop fighting for them, when you trade passion for endurance, fire for stillness. You wake up one morning and the version of you who wanted more is gone. No grief, no heartbreak, just nothing. Your dream, whatever that was, faded away. You didn't quit it dramatically. There's no grand decision, no moment of crisis. It just slipped. And that is the fate of many nonchalant dreadheads. The reason for that nonchalant apocalypse is, well, young men are lost. At this point, it's pretty much common knowledge, a masculine framework of rules and purpose that lasted for centuries has been derailed. Men are stripped of their masculinity as it's supposedly toxic and outdated now. A great shift in popular media, where men are allowed to be emotional and weak, not having to put up some sort of facade at the cost of being utterly incompetent, irresponsible, or just plain dumb. And men want to be in touch with their emotional side, but they don't want to be crying goofballs. They want strength, endurance, and growth. And that is why young men seek refuge in other ideas. Prominent masculine figures in self improvement, like Andrew Tate or Hamza, appeal to them. They can call out the BS of mass media. On one side, young men are encouraged to be emotionally vulnerable. On the other side, they see the opposite and indifferent reality. The masculine self improvement concept deeply resonates with their real world experience. Even my audience consists of 80% men, particularly young men. And what do I have to say about masculinity? I'm just a random guy on the internet, which means I sit right here on the hierarchy of people you should listen to. I think the only masculine ideal is becoming. Let me explain. Masculinity is less about adhering to a fixed ideal and more about something that's constantly evolving, becoming. It's not about reaching some end goal that society tells you is successful. Instead, it's about the journey, the process of growth, and pushing yourself to become a better version of who you are. It's about understanding that we are always becoming something more, not because we need to prove ourselves to others, but because we have a natural desire to grow and improve. Therefore, the definition of masculinity constantly changes because it always transcends the previous one. However, as we are now in an age of change in masculinity and looming dangers of emasculation, many men cling onto the constructed masculine framework. By the way, let me know in the comments if you want an entire video about my viewpoint of masculinity and testosterone as well. Young men fear that during this transformation they could lose their masculinity and so jump into the manosphere rabbit hole. And the masculine ideal of the manosphere is a little twisted, mainly because it is combining a lot of seemingly contradictory themes like red pill, pickup artists, but also Christianity, recently Islam as well, and Stoicism. What they all have in common, though, is even if they are contradictory, they all give you a promise to stay with the current masculine model, whether that's purpose, status, money, or women, ignoring your inner dream and aspiration, your true masculinity, to become more, and replacing it with external desires and sort of a rule book which will give you purpose and some rules that you will break anyway because that's masculine. The role of Stoicism in that masculine framework is crucial. The suppression of that dream and the emotional attachment, a cold and reserved, hard-working individual. Stoic philosophy can be made into bite-sized pieces and tossed around on podcasts for everyone to just say, damn, that's deep. And a lot of young men adhere to Stoicism even if they aren't part of the manosphere, as they find comfort in its preachings of balance and virtues, courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. But is it doing them any good? Well, tracking workplace performance and self-reported ambition among young professionals, nearly 40% of participants who identified with an extreme Stoic approach reported a decline in ambitious goal setting. Over a period of 2 years, these individuals showed reduced engagement in innovative projects or initiatives compared to peers who maintained a more balanced approach to emotional engagement and risk-taking. A study conducted in 2021 by the Center for Emerging Adult Mental Health surveyed young men involved in online Stoic communities. It revealed that about 28% of respondents who strictly adhered to a detached, outcome-independent mindset reported feelings of social isolation and lower overall satisfaction with life. This contrasted with a general population average within the same demographic of around 18% reporting similar symptoms. So, does Stoicism correlate with this loss of satisfaction and purpose? Well, you might say it's because Stoicism is misunderstood and purposefully implemented, as already mentioned. Any 15-year-old on Reddit can claim to be a Stoic, and the studies were done on self-reported Stoics. So the problem is Broicism, men just being told to work hard and accept things as they are. Yes, partially, because as much as Stoics like to accuse you of misinterpretation, there's a reason why Broicism is so widespread and why Stoicism probably has more in common with Bro philosophy than it would like. So let's start with the first key issue, which I'll call the detachment paradox. Stoicism encourages detachment from external things because they are beyond our control. And this statement already is a little problematic because there are simply grey zones in our lives which we kind of control but then kind of don't. Okay, but emotional detachment from things like wealth, status, other people, and even our own loved ones. The idea is that if you don't cling to things emotionally, you won't suffer when they change or are lost. However, Stoicism also values virtue and eupathia, healthy emotions such as love, gratitude, and joy. A Stoic is encouraged to care about justice, wisdom, and even relationships, but without becoming too emotionally invested in their outcomes. The paradox arises when you consider deep human connections. For example, a Stoic parent should love their child, but also be prepared to lose them without excessive grief. But true love naturally brings emotional attachment. So can a Stoic truly love without setting themselves up for suffering? If they avoid grief, are they emotionally numb? And if they allow grief, are they failing in detachment? Two problematic outcomes emerge. If a Stoic fully succeeds in detachment, they risk becoming emotionally numb, avoiding deep joy as much as deep sorrow. However, if they embrace attachment but still try to remain Stoic, they may be deluding themselves about their ability to let go without suffering. This creates a contradiction. Can you truly love something without being emotionally vulnerable to its loss? Stoics often resort to the term natural when describing their philosophy. For example, birth and death, both being part of a natural cycle. The greater Stoic idea is that the universe operates under a rational and deterministic order known as logos, a principle of reason that structures everything, from natural laws to human morality. But the question is living with a natural, balanced order even possible by definition? Logos assumes an inherent rational order in nature, yet modern science and philosophy reveal a universe governed by randomness, chaos, and indifference. Quantum mechanics shows that uncertainty is fundamental. Thermodynamics proves entropy increases over time, and evolution operates through chance, mutations, rather than a structured plan. If logos, which is rational and good, implied morality or order, nature wouldn't be filled with suffering, predation, and arbitrary destruction. Yet Stoicism often claims that nature is just indifferent on the surface, but there is order deep inside. But to me, it seems like it's actually the opposite, that life is like a tiny dot of order in a chaotic universe. But because we see a lot of order around us, which we call life, we may assume that inherent universal order. But at the very core, logos is not something apparent, something so obvious. At the very core, Stoics believe in logos, which is not very rational and is guided by an inner need for order. And what Stoicism lacks is dealing with chaos, like absurdism and existentialism. Stoicism clings onto order and denies chaos instead of actively confronting it or even thriving in it. And there's nothing wrong in believing that there is some inherent order in the universe, like, for example, a god. But at the very core, religions acknowledge that it's a belief, while Stoics kind of say, well, it's rational, well, you can see the order. No, it's not. It is a belief. This reliance on order and rationality creates another core problem for Stoics, which I'll call virtue over outcome. In Stoic philosophy, virtue is the highest quality. Courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. It is not about feeling good or bad, but acting in line with the universal rationality. However, this rational ideal doesn't account for the fundamental truth that our understanding of right and wrong is shaped by our human experiences, feelings, and emotions. Stoicism's effort to detach from emotions and transcend personal desires in pursuit of virtue often leads to an artificial framework that neglects the richness of lived experience. Let's look at a simple idea. Let's look at something like winning, for example. In short, winning feels good. Success keeps us alive, but there is nothing inherently good or bad about winning, other than it leading to satisfaction and more winning. It's a good feeling, yet Stoicism now takes that goodness and rationalizes it into some order. Now winning doesn't feel good, but is good by definition. But you know what? Winning actually doesn't matter, as you should detach from outcomes. The other aspect of winning was more winning, so improvement. Yeah, that's what matters now. And one thought I had is imagine you'd be like a robot or a machine that constantly trains, improves, and wins, yet doesn't feel like a winner. It's a winner, however, it cannot feel good. It's a machine after all. Would you like to feel or would you like to win? Perhaps the greatest irony of our age is how backwards we approach life. People can be indifferent to throwing away their whole lives into monotony and mediocrity, yet easily get triggered and paralyzed by tiny problems or tasks or even spilled coffee. Stoicism takes away the little struggles in life. It is probably the most applicable philosophy and a beautiful legacy of the ancient world, a philosophy that was used by slaves and emperors. But there is a certain reason why philosophical thought has evolved past Stoicism, because at its core, it is an incomplete philosophy, a great day-to-day philosophy, but for a lifetime, it is passive living, because if you don't care about the small things anymore, but you also place no importance on the big picture, then what does matter? In the end, Stoicism really helped me in everyday stressful situations. But I wouldn't advise you to detach from outcomes that do matter to you on an inner level. There's no satisfaction of success without grief of loss. Yet both give life meaning. You have to find and embrace a flame, a dream, a person, an idea that are worth working on, fighting for, and crying over. And with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned for the next one.